Well, again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather on the 25th day of February, 2021. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, hazardous weather graphic, starting there in the Panhandle for the greater Juneau area, Admiralty Island. That's a heavy snow warning for later tonight until 1 p.m. Saturday afternoon. Looking for anywhere from 4 to 9 inches of snow, give or take, there across the area during that time frame. So pretty good shot of snow coming into that area tonight. Otherwise, mostly rain everywhere else, or the whatever does fall, snow won't be heavy enough to get into even an advisory area, just the warning zone there around the Juneau area, Admiralty Island. And there's also winter weather advisory for the western Kenai Peninsula and for the Susitna Valley area, for anywhere from 5 to 10, 11 inches of snow, especially for the Susitna Valley, northern Susitna Valley, for tonight into tomorrow afternoon. Should start lightening up the way it looks right now, possibly by late tomorrow afternoon, early evening, but probably see light snow continue through tomorrow night here across the area, as well as all of the eastern interior, central interior as well. We got winter weather advisories out for the areas up into the Arctic Village area, right up to the southern slopes of the Brooks Range there. And that's for a little bit later on. Take the moisture a little longer to get up there, so that'll be kicking in probably later tomorrow in those areas. 4 to 7 inches of snow there, maybe some gusty winds, and creating some lower visibilities and blowing snow. But could see some pretty good snow across the southern slopes of the Alaska Range. But winter weather advisories for the Fairbanks area, Eagle, the upper Yukon, or the upper Tanana Valley, and the 40 Mile Country, central interior, Koyukuk Valley, winter weather advisory for snow, possible blowing snow, but anywhere again from 5 to 10 inches possibly falling in some areas there. Then it kind of cuts off, much drier and much lighter snow that really cuts off there almost at the zone area there for the western interior. But we've got winter weather advisory, or actually a wind chill advisory for the St. Lawrence Island area and the Bering Strait coast, as well as the northwest coast for tonight into midday tomorrow. Wind chills 55 degrees below zero, or 45 to 50 below zero with gusty winds. And then there's a wind chill warning for the western Arctic coast there for wind chills to 65 degrees below zero for tonight until I believe it's midday on Saturday. And that's about it for the watches, warnings, and advisories, or in this case, the advisories and warnings. And satellite imagery showing a big swath of moisture stretching from southern Alaska there southwestward, south of the Alaska Peninsula. And it's almost about a 1,000-mile unbroken band there that extends well south of the satellite picture here into the Pacific. And moisture up across southern Alaska with snow. And that's going to increase here with the low center pulling up and into the Copper River Basin. You can see the clouds and precipitation getting up into the Tanana Valley and increasing again over the Panhandle, but still cold, well below zero for the north slopes, showing up as that white. That's not clouds, that's just the cold ground there. And you can actually see the ice up over the Arctic Ocean, along with some clouds moving around up there. Still tending to drop to the south. Bering Sea, not a lot going on. Definitely a lack of storminess out there. Kind of the calm before the storm setting up out there, because the big system's going to be rolling in there tomorrow night out over the western Aleutian, southwest Bering Sea, bringing storm to hurricane force wind warnings. That will be spreading over the entire Bering Sea. So break going on right now. Continue tonight into tomorrow. But there are some areas of moisture there, rain periods of light rain, eastern Aleutians, and then a mix there for the Pribilofs up into the northern Bering Sea with weak circulation out there. You can see it's only 998 millibars, another weak circulation off the southwest coast there. And then that southwest flow bringing moisture again from off the chart northeastward right into southern and central Alaska, all the way up to the Yukon River, about the dividing line today there, with the snow heading off to the north. And gusty winds supporting that wind chill warning for tonight and tomorrow for the western Arctic coast. Otherwise, the North Slope, lighter winds, possible areas of fog. And then for tonight, warm front brings moisture back in, increases it, along with a pickup in the winds there for the Panhandle and warming temperatures. So snowfall levels will be rising above sea level, especially for the outer coastline and southern areas. And snow periods of for all of the central and southern interior areas, with snow pushing up toward the Brooks Range across the Yukon Flats there, into the Nulato Hills, eastern Norton Sound, covering all of the southwest coast, and still windy and colder for the Brooks Range and North Slope areas. Not so much wind for the North Slope and Arctic coast. So you can see the gradient along and just south of the Brooks Range there to the northwest coast. And then northerlies continue with the wind chill advisory St. Lawrence Island, but conditions will stay dry. And then lots of snow and snow showers out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, but not quite as bad as that suggests. More showery conditions, not all that heavy. And then for Saturday, high pressure ridging right over the central Bering Sea ahead of that next system, with storm force winds and hurricane force winds coming into the western Aleutians. Otherwise, colder air back down across the Alaska Peninsula, and colder air moving back into Kodiak Island for falling, lowering snowfall levels. And snow continues, starts to lighten up southern Alaska tomorrow afternoon possibly, but look for a fair amount of snow, a widespread area of snow over the interior from the Brooks Range down across central eastern areas. Some of that spilling actually westward, and then the gusty winds could result in some blowing snow from the northwest coast on down along the Yukon Delta coast. And then moving on to Sunday, before I lose my voice, big storm centers over the western and southwest Bering Sea, about 959 millibars, but quite an intense pressure field surrounding that. And again, hurricane force west-southwesterlies there for the western Aleutians, and storm force winds into the central Aleutians, with gales just about everywhere else. Probably be a band of gale or storm force winds ahead of the frontal boundary there, especially with the northern Bering Sea, but won't quite reach St. Lawrence Island and the southwest coast. Starts to see an increase in the snowfall chances late in the afternoon, and the winds kind of lagging behind that, but not the case for the Alaska Peninsula. And the warmer air south of the warm front will make for rain for the western Alaska Peninsula and the Fox Islands. And 988 millibar low now pulling eastward, but still a widespread area of snow. Central interior, Tanana Valley, upper Yukon Valley, across the Brooks Range into the Copper River Basin, and some of that now into the northern Panhandle, kind of right on the Arctic boundary, but under the southwest flow, sea level areas will be in the form of rain. With any elevation of all, there'll be snow. Not much change up over the North Slope. High pressure still locked in there for light winds and cold temperatures. And then for the Saturday morning, we've got lows around 10, mid-20s there for the North Gulf Coast, mid to upper 20s for south central Alaska, mid-30s Kodiak Island. And then we've got lower 20s northern Panhandle, the upper 30s to the south, and mid-30s for Kodiak Island. And then up north, again, well below zero, right around zero for your lows in the Tanana Valley, a little above to the east and a little below to the west, 15 to 25 below, though, for the Seward Peninsula, and then 30 to 45 below for the North Slope Arctic coast. And for out west, mid-20s to lower 30s. And for the highs Saturday, lower to mid-30s south central Alaska, lower 30s to Sitna Valley, upper 20s for the Copper River Basin, lower 40s Kodiak Island, lower 40s central and southern Panhandle, upper 30s to the north, and 5 to 15 above and along the Brooks Range in the windy areas, 20s to lower to mid-20s, and near zero up south of the Brooks Range, but still below zero, North Slope Arctic coast, 9 below for St. Lawrence Island. Single numbers, Yukon Delta and Kuskokwim Delta coast, but lower 30s to near 40 for Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula, and the Aleutians. And for Sunday morning, we're looking at lows in the teens. Copper River Basin, Susitna Valley, part of the Kenai Peninsula, teens lower 20s, upper 20s Kodiak Island, and upper 30s to lower 40s for the Panhandle, and a little below zero west of the Alaska Range, near zero for the Bristol Bay, and staying well below zero, especially the northwest interior, North Slope, still 35 to 45 below there, and upper 20s below zero for the western Arctic coast, and for the upper teens for the Pribilofs, mid-30s central Aleutians. And for afternoon highs, Lower to mid-40s for the Panhandle, 40 degrees for Yakutat, but cold air comes back into Kodiak Island, a high of 28 there, and starting to get colder on the backside of the low center with below zero conditions. That's Sparrowvon with a high of 3 below, and mid-teens to sit in the valley, teens to lower 20, south central Alaska, trending downward, and single numbers, Tanana Valley, not so far below zero, but still 20 to 30 below for the North Slope and eastern Arctic coast. Mid-teens below 0 to 7 below for St. Lawrence Island.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
For aviation, we'll start with a look at our flying weather on Saturday morning. Out over the Bering Sea and Aleutian Islands, widespread MVFR conditions are expected, getting to see more IFR as we get north of the Pribilof Islands and closer towards the southwest coastline. Those IFR conditions are going to spread throughout the Gulf of Alaska, including Kodiak Island area, as well as out into the Panhandle, and some areas of IFR through south central Alaska, southwest Alaska, and into the interior. However, as we get by the Seward Peninsula and the Brooks Range areas up into the Arctic coast, we are expecting VFR conditions. Saturday afternoon, continue to see primarily VFR conditions for the Arctic coastline, Brooks Range, and Seward Peninsula, but areas of IFR extending from the interior down through south central with isolated areas of IFR for southwest Alaska. Continued IFR conditions also for the Panhandle area as well as much of the Gulf of Alaska, and a mixture of MVFR and IFR conditions for the Bering Sea and Aleutians with some pockets of VFR expected. Sunday morning, we have another system coming in out west, bringing more IFR conditions to the central and western Aleutians, lingering MVFR conditions for the eastern portions of the Bering Sea and Alaska Peninsula, and some areas of MVFR and IFR for the interior as well as south central Alaska, and IFR conditions extending along the North Gulf Coast into the Panhandle area. Up along the Arctic coastline, VFR conditions out east with MVFR out west. Sunday afternoon, some lingering areas of MVFR along the Arctic coastline. Much of mainland Alaska, however, should be VFR, with the exception of the southeast portions of the mainland, where we will see a mixture of MVFR and IFR conditions. More IFR conditions through the Yakutat area and along the coastal ranges of the Panhandle area, with some MVFR conditions extending out into the Gulf. Out over the Bering Sea and Aleutians, frontal system moving through, bringing some IFR conditions to the western Aleutians, as well as the Pribilof Islands and the eastern Aleutian Islands. For our passes starting up north on Saturday for AKwx should be VFR throughout the day, as well as at Adigan Pass. Down in the Alaska range, Lake Clark and Merrill both expected to be IFR all day Saturday, as well as Rainy Pass and Windy Pass. As we move east to Isabel, we are going to start off IFR, then improve to marginal conditions in the afternoon, and Mentasta Pass should be MVFR throughout the day Saturday. Tanita Pass expected to be IFR, as well as at Portage, and Chilkoot and White should both be IFR throughout the day Saturday. For our freezing levels, surface freezing line moves through central portions of the Bering Sea, then along the North Gulf Coast and down into the Panhandle area. We are seeing some warmer air come up from the south, with some freezing levels up to as high as 10,000 feet just to the south of the Gulf of Alaska, and that 2,000 foot freezing level moving near the North Gulf coastline as well as into the Alaska Peninsula. For our icing, many areas of some isolated moderates starting out west above 4,000 feet for the western Aleutian Islands, moving into the eastern portions of the Bering Sea above 5,000 feet expected there. For the southern portions of mainland Alaska, above 4,000 feet is expected, and for the Panhandle, above 5,000 feet is expected. For our jet stream, strongest portion of the jet impacting our area is going to be out over the Bering Sea, primarily a westerly component to the flow up to as high as 145 knots out over the central Bering, dropping down into the central and eastern Aleutian Islands. Out over mainland Alaska, strongest winds are going to be in southeastern portions of the mainland up to as high as 125 knots out of a westerly direction, then 150 knot jet out of our northwestern Canada out of a northwesterly direction. At 9,000 feet, some stronger winds still over the Panhandle area, up to as high as 50 knots out of a southwesterly direction. For the southern mainland, westerly flow around 30 knots, and then along the Arctic coastline, easterly winds 35 knots expected there. For central and eastern portions of the Bering Sea, northwesterly winds 40 knots, getting up to closer towards 55 by the central Aleutians, and then strong winds by the western Aleutians, 90 knots out of a southwesterly direction to the south of the islands, closer towards 70 as we get near the islands. Down to 3,000 feet, pretty similar for those western Aleutians, strong southwesterly flow up to as high as 80 knots south of the islands, dropping down closer towards 60 near the islands. In the eastern portions of the Bering, northerly winds up to as high as 45 knots for the islands and Alaska Peninsula, 45 knots for the Bering Strait area as well, out of that northeasterly direction. And then some isolated areas up to as high as 30 knots out of an easterly direction in the interior, to include the Yukon Flats area and out by Ambler, and then up along the Arctic coastline as well. Down in the Panhandle area, we're going to see some southwesterly flow around 40 knots there. And another area of some stronger core winds on the North Gulf coastline with a barrier jet in the area expected, getting up to as high as around 30 knots out of a southeasterly direction. For our turbulence, quite a few areas of turbulence with some of these stronger winds, below 4,000 feet for much of the Aleutian Islands, Alaska Peninsula, and into areas around the Barren Islands and Kodiak Island. Up along the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, and up by the Point Hope and Point Lay areas, below 4,000 feet is expected there. Through the Alaska Range, below 5,000 feet is expected, as well as down by the south central areas, including Anchorage. Some isolated areas below 5,000 in the interior as well.
We try to provide everyone with the best forecast we can for snow, sleet, and ice in the winter with as much notice as we can. And we've made great strides in our forecasting over the years. However, given the complexity in winter weather forecasting, the first forecast simply won't be as good as the one closer to the event. As the event nears, our forecasts will become more precise.
Forecasts are updated constantly from days before the event until the precipitation actually begins. If you want the most accurate and up-to-date information, you have to check the forecast frequently.
It's very unlikely that any computer model snow amount forecast, especially days in advance, will be exactly right. Sometimes it's even difficult to forecast amounts the day of the event. Don't focus so much on exact numbers. Our forecast offices produce a range of possibilities available on each office's winter page.
Impacts from winter storms can vary a lot across even short distances, especially true in the terrain of the mountains, but even in areas with more subtle differences in elevation. Just because it's not bad where you are doesn't mean that it isn't bad just a short distance away.
There's often a small area, perhaps not bigger than a couple of counties, of heavy snow embedded within the larger area of precipitation. It is very difficult to pinpoint exactly where this area will occur in advance. That is why we give ranges and probabilities, and that is what we mean when we say isolated higher amounts.
Not all storms are the same. Some storms affect different areas in different ways, and even weaker storms can produce big impacts. The Winter Storm Severity Index is a product that uses threat levels to depict overall anticipated impacts to society due to winter weather.
You can be a citizen scientist. You can report the weather that is occurring at your location any time of day. Local National Weather Service forecast offices offer Skywarn Storm Spotter training, so you can become an official Skywarn Storm Spotter. The MPing app and website allows you to submit your report online. And for the most dedicated, you can join AKwx, where you can submit your daily precipitation report directly to the National Weather Service. Your ground truth helps us improve forecasts.
Did you know that a 1 to 2 degree temperature difference either at the surface or just a few hundred feet off the ground can make a big difference in whether we get rain, freezing rain, sleet, or snow? That's really hard to forecast when we don't have a lot of data, but thankfully we do have 92 upper air stations that release weather balloons at least twice a day.
Even if you live in warmer climates, it's important to know your winter precipitation types when traveling. Freezing rain is liquid rain that freezes when it hits the ground, creating a coat of ice on roads, walkways, trees, and power lines. Sleet is rain that freezes into ice pellets before reaching the ground.
Snow squalls are quick, intense bursts of heavy snow that are accompanied by gusty winds. They rapidly reduce visibility and can create treacherous travel. Snow squall warnings are issued for localized areas where snow squalls are expected in the next 30 to 60 minutes. As of December 2019, they are now sent as one of the wireless emergency alerts.
Know the differences between watches, warnings, and advisories. A winter storm warning means that confidence is high that a winter storm will produce heavy wintry precipitation and cause significant impacts. A winter storm watch means that confidence is medium and that a winter storm producing significant impacts is possible. A winter weather advisory means to exercise caution as light amounts of wintry precipitation will cause slick conditions and may impact travel.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at the marine forecast, we've got small craft advisories for the outer coastline of the Panhandle, southwest 25 to 30 knots, southeast 30 to 35 knots for Clarence Strait, and or for south 25 for Clarence Strait, Stevens Passage, southeast 30 to 35 knots, south 20 for Lynn Canal and Glacier Bay. And then for Saturday, along the coast, small craft advisory, southwest 25 to 30 knots, with seas 10 to 13 feet, south 25 knots for Clarence Strait, Stevens Passage, southeast 30 to 35 knots. And then we've got, let me get on Sunday. There, a lighter wind, central and southern inside waters. I didn't think it was the same. 15 knots, small craft advisories, Lynn Canal, southerlies at 25, and then west winds 25 knots for the entire stretch of the outer coastline. And into Sunday or Saturday, going the wrong way here. Okay. And there we go. Prince William Sound, northeast at 20 knots. Same thing for the western North Gulf Coast. Light winds for Cook Inlet out of the northeast and west 20 knots. Big increase in these winds on Sunday. West 60 knots there for Kamishak Bay. Northwest 55 for the Barren Islands. Northwest 30 to 40 knots for the North Gulf Coast. Gale warnings for Prince William Sound. Northwest wind sustained 35 knots, seas up to 7 feet, and gale warnings for southern Cook Inlet. And for Bristol Bay on Saturday, we've got northwest gales at 35 knots and west 40 knots from Cape Sarachev to Sitkinak. West southwest 20 to 25 knots, Kodiak Island. Northwest 30 for the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, and gale warnings for Bristol Bay. And then for Sunday, northwest 30 for Bristol Bay and west northwest 40 to 45 knots there for Kodiak Island. And moving on to the Aleutians for tomorrow, the Fox Islands, west 25 to 35 knots, 9 to 17 foot seas. Minimum gales there are Adak and Atka, 30 knots Amchitka Island, and southeast 45 knots for Kiska. And then that really comes up tomorrow night in through Sunday. Big time winds moving in out over the western and southwest Bering Sea and the western Aleutians. West-southwest 55 to 65 knots, seas 37 to 52 feet, and storms into Adak and Atka at about 50 knots, and 40 to 45 knot winds coming into the Fox Islands, with seas running 14 to 21 feet. And for the southwest coast, north-northwest 20 to 30 knots, north 30 for St. Lawrence Island, and small craft advisory, St. Matthew Island, the Pribilos, north to northwest at 25. And then for Sunday, For Norton Sound, northwest 15, and then brisk wind advisories for St. Lawrence Island and the Yukon Delta coast for 25-knot winds from the north and northeast. But 60-knot easterlies coming into the northern Bering Sea, St. Matthew Island, southeast 45. Probably you'll see some storm force winds before they come back down to 45 there for the Pribilofs, and then north 25 for the Kuskokwim Delta coast, and northeast 25 for the Yukon Delta coast. And for the central and east side of, the east 15 to 20 knot east-northeasterlies, eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow. Lightest will be the central coast northeast at 10, and then brisk wind advisories from Cape Beaufort to Wales, northerlies 25 to 30 knots. And then for Sunday, from Wales to Cape Thompson, north 30 knots for brisk wind advisories, and then 15 to 15 knot winds on the western Arctic coast, northeast at 10 for the eastern stretch of the Beaufort Sea coastline. And for tonight up that way, winds are pretty light. They'll probably see some possible areas of low clouds and fog, but windy. Western Brooks range along mountains of the northwest coast, and actually a winter wind chill warning for the western Arctic coast, Point Lay down to Cape Lisburne for 65 degree below zero wind chills tonight into tomorrow. And winter weather advisories over the interior, anywhere from 5 to 12 inches of snow. So sit in the Mananuska Valley, up into the interior, all the way up to about the Yukon River across the flats, but lighter amounts out west, and wet and windy for the Panhandle. And for Saturday, we're looking at again still snow, but probably not as heavy, but still a widespread area of snow from the Brooks Range, central interior, all the way down till it mixes with rain along the outer coastline. Rains over the Panhandle, snow at the higher elevations, colder air back in across the Alaska Peninsula. And then you can see out west there a big storm coming in with a tight pressure field advance of the front, and the 959 millibar low bringing the hurricane force wind warnings to the western Aleutians and gale and storm force winds elsewhere, with precipitation reaching the southwest coast Sunday afternoon. And take a little longer for the winds to pick up there. Winds will gradually increase, but won't be too bad, at least through the day Sunday for St. Lawrence Island. Clear and cold over the western interior, still snowy, but not as widespread over the east.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.